cynicism is gone.
This is God.
Hello everyone, Joshua Myers here, and today I'm going to be reviewing Fade to Black from 1980.
Twinkle, twinkle, movie star. Eric knows just where you are. Try to run, try to hide. You won't get out of this alive. Dennis Christopher in Fade to Black. Rated R.
Fade to Black, now playing at a theater near you.
Fade to Black stars Dennis Christopher, Tim Thomason, I think I'm pronouncing that name right, if not, here's his name, right here, Gwenny Gifford, I think I'm pronouncing that name right, if not, here it is, Norman Burton, Linda Carriage, again, I think I'm pronouncing out at least that last name right, if not, here's the full name here, and it's directed by Vernon Zimmerman. The plot of Fade to Black is that a shy, lonely film buff embarks on a killing spree against those who he deemed wronged him. All while at the same time, while stalking a girl who he thinks is his idol, Marilyn Monroe. Now, before I get on to the rest of this review, I would like to say I have not, this was a first time watch for me. I had never seen Fade to Black before. In fact, I never heard of it until I watched the In Search of Darkness documentary, which if you don't know what those are, because there's two of them, they just announced a third one in development, which I'll discuss in a Blood Moon News video. What the In Search of Darkness documentaries are, they are basically the definitive, in-depth look into iconic 80s horror. And you get interviews from a lot of stars from those movies and stuff like that, film historians, even YouTube personnel such as James Rolfe over at Cinemassacre and James A. Jennings over at Dead Meat. And In Search of Darkness Part 2 continues the same thing, but has a lot more people on board. Even more YouTube personnel. So yeah, that's what the In Search of Darkness documentary is on. I may eventually review both documentaries at some point, and then I'll eventually cover the most recent news of In Search of Darkness Part 3. So be sure to look out for those at some point. So yeah, recently the In Search of Darkness documentaries have been kind of my go-to guide in terms of looking for different horror films that I may have not seen or heard of. In fact, a lot of the ones I've been reviewing lately in terms of horror films that came out in the 80s, I watched them all because I watched the In Search of Darkness documentaries. They're both on Shudder, so if you have Shudder, I highly recommend you check those two out. They're 4.5 hours long, but honestly, they do not feel like you're watching a 4.5 hour long movie. So yeah, I highly recommend you go check out In Search of Darkness and In Search of Darkness Part 2. So I had not seen Fade to Black, and this was a first time watch for me. I do got some thoughts on it, so let's get right into them. Whew. Where did I even begin on this one? You know, I like the fact that it kind of takes the approach of, because what this film really does is showcase, just kind of the outlook, basically how people viewed horror movie fans at the time. And you could argue still how people view us horror fans today, because the main character is a horror fanatic, in fact, the killer is the main character, and he doesn't start off as a killer. I will say I did genuinely care for this kid. I really did. Because he reminded of myself without the killing part, of course, and the psychosis, but I always felt like I was and I'm sure a lot of us horror fans felt like this. We kind of feel like outcasts, and stuff like that, just because of the stuff we like. And for example, that's one of the reasons I love horror. I felt love trying to scare people and dress up in these, as these killers or monsters or all that stuff. And it's because I personally feel like it kind of, not only is it fun, first of all, but also gives me kind of a sense of, power, I guess you could say, in that regard, almost especially without naming any names, if I could scare the people who I felt wronged me over the years, through my movies and stuff like that, then I feel like I've achieved something, anything. I really understood what our main character was going through and that, and I really related to him and cared for him to the point where by the end, when he, his descent into madness and everything, I was legit sad for him, you know? I wanted to see him pull through this and maybe come back to the light, I guess you could say. Another positive I have is they actually treat, like, because there's a psychiatrist in this movie and stuff like that, and they treat the whole mental health stuff in a positive light, you know? Which, by the way, I did really like the psychiatrist character here. He kind of almost a bit reminded me a bit of Tom Atkins in Howling Free a bit. That's just a whole nother thing. I really like most of the characters, especially the ones you're meant to care for. And the ones you're not, the ones you are meant to, you know, see as really scummy people, because that's how our main character, I think his name was Eric, view them as like basically the same as you do with Eric. You kind of view them as the same thing. You view them as scumbags. You feel like even some characters who start off very pleasant and nice and everything, you think things are going to go well for him and another character, but then it turned out, no, the person is just about as scummy as some of the other people you say. And when I saw stuff like that, I felt pissed off at that person, and I felt sorry for Eric. So yeah, I really dug all the character stuff in that, and not only that too, they, like, the people they make it despicable, they don't make, like, out to be, like, complete monsters. It's like, they're just the right amount of despicableness, you know, to the point where you're on Eric's side in that but at the same time too, you don't want to see Eric do the things he's about to do, you know, go on this revenge killing spree, and that you don't want to see him do that. But you despise these people enough to where you feel at least some sympathy for Eric. Also, another thing I like too is just overall the story. I like the idea, like, again, like I said, I like the angle they're taking here with, like, you know, with horror fans and stuff like that, but they're not making it out of spite of horror fans, I feel like. It's basically in the sense, you know, the film is trying to say, horror fans do feel like outcasts, and people don't accept us as a part of society, you know, like, almost like then that could start to cause some problems. It's a real problem, not just for the person in question, but also for a lot of other people. And, you know, I thought that was an interesting angle to take it from. It wasn't trying to say, oh, all horror fans are, you know, psychotic, evil scumbags and stuff like that will murder you on a dime, you know? It's like, no, it didn't say that at all, you know? And also another thing I really liked about this movie was the pacing. The pacing is, like, really good, actually. It's only like an hour and a half, maybe a little bit more, but like it's like an hour and 40 minutes, something like that. But it moves by pretty quickly without sacrificing story and character development. Plus, I also found it interesting just all the types of, like, characters that Eric dresses up as to enact these revenge killings, you know? It's like, you know, and here's the thing, not all these characters he dresses up as are horror characters. Some of them are from other genres. Like, I think one of the first ones he dresses up as was Dracula, the Bela Lugosi version, actually, from the classic, you know, 1931 film by Universal. And then the other one isn't, like, the next one he dresses up as isn't even a horror character. It's some sort of, like, I forgot who it was, but some sort of, like, Western, you know, cowboy antagonist and that, in which he dressed up as to kill one of his bullies and, like, one of the bullies at work and stuff like that. Which I thought that was surprising. I thought he was going to dress up in only horror characters, but I guess I was wrong, so that was pretty interesting. Also, let's say too, speaking of which, like, I would like to give huge props to the costume and makeup department in this movie, because the characters they have, the actor, I don't know who the actor's name is here, like I don't know who the actor who plays Eric. I'll post his name right here when I get around to finding that out. I think it's Dennis Christopher, I believe, but whoever did the costuming and makeup for him for all these different characters did an outstanding job. Like, no joke, like, those could be considered some of the better cosplay for these types of characters and that out there. Like, no joke, like, I kind of want to now dress up as some of these characters, you know, like, like in the exact same way, like with the makeup and the costume design. You know, like for example, the Dracula costume, I really liked how it goes off the black and white feel and just everything, even like the costume reflects that. Like for example, like most of the Dracula robing and stuff like that is black on the outside, but on the inside with the cape and that, it's pure white to give off the black and white vibe. I really dug that. In fact, if you want to ask me what is my favorite costume that Eric dresses up as on these revenge killings, for me is my favorite honestly would have to be the Dracula costume. That is awesome. I may have to one of these days dress up as, you know, that specific look of Dracula one of these days. I have to, just with the same like design and everything. That'd be awesome. I may even take some black and white photos and video of that, because my camera here does could shoot in black and white. Actually, there's one last positive. One of the last positives I have with this movie is, and I found really interesting, there's barely any music throughout this movie. And when it is, it's only for maybe some intense sequences and stuff like that. And even the music they do use is pretty good. If there's a soundtrack to Fade to Black, I'll probably pick up the soundtrack to Fade to Black and have it in my collection here. But honestly, for me, that's it with my positives. Let's move on to the stuff I'm mixed on, because there's quite a few things I'm rather split on this movie. On the one hand, while visually I think it looks pretty good, you know, there's a lot of colors and stuff like that to it, but I think it just kind of is dull, you know, like it's weird, it's really weird. It's like, while it's bright and colorful and a lot of times, it's kind of dull. It's like, let me show you, for example, I'll post it on screen. It's like, let me take like a certain like color palette here, and let's say if I were to show you one that is what I'm talking about with this movie. That is what I'm thinking of with this movie, and that's why I'm rather mixed on it. I'm not sure if you guys noticed, but I love playing with like bright colors. I love playing with, you know, just what you could do visually with that. And you definitely see that with my thumbnails, for instance, especially as of late. So I kind of wish they kind of had a bit more, just increase the hue and saturation of stuff is basically what I'm suggesting. Because it's it's toned down like in the saturation with that. But honestly, for me, that's the only thing I'm rather mixed on, and I do have one negative, so let's move right into that. Why the fuck was there a masturbation scene in this movie? No, seriously, why the fuck was there a masturbation scene in this movie? To the point where it showed it in kind of a, almost like a porn shoot, almost, except without, you know, all that stuff. It's like, seriously, why was that in, like, is there something I'm missing there? You know, like, 'cause I feel like you could cut that whole scene out together and the film would honestly, I think, work better than it did, you know, because I felt like, because for the most part, the film was honestly kind of classy in its approach, for the most part, in regards to what I was thinking, but the fact that they added in this masturbation scene kind of removed some of the classiness this film could have had. And I'm like, seriously, did the director in the studios was like, yes, that is an essential masturbation scene. Like, this film would be lost if we did not have that masturbation scene in there. Like, seriously, is there something I'm missing with that? Anybody? I mean, tell me in the comments down below if you think that that masturbation scene was completely pointless if you've seen the movie, or if you think it was essential to have it. And if you're one of those people who think it was essential to have that masturbation scene, tell me why. Seriously, I'd like to know, because to be honest, I personally think it was not necessary. And I don't get why the director or the studio or whatever decided to throw that in there. But honestly, for me, that's it with my negatives. So let's move on to my rating. So with that said, I'm going to get Fade to Black a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Honestly, this is a really good you know, 80s horror film. And in fact, it came out early, like 1980, like I said, like at the very beginning of the 80s. And I just really dug the angles they took for it, you know, and it was rather different from what I've seen so far of 80s horror. Had some really likable characters, and even the ones that, like, our main character that descends into madness is still relatable. You don't want to see him go that path and that, but, and all that too, it's a film that doesn't, like, necessarily basically harp on horror fans and stuff like that because of the fact they made this character relatable. It's not like one of those, oh, horror fans are evil, sadistic scumbags that will murder you on a dime, you know, like I said earlier. It's not like that at all. I dug the pacing of this movie. The costuming and makeup was really good. Just overall, I had a blast with Fade to Black. I really thank In Search of Darkness for basically introducing me to this film, and I hope to review more films from their catalog that they show, which is what I've been doing lately. And again, if you guys have yet to check out the In Search of Darkness documentaries, both Part 1 and Part 2, they're currently on Shudder right now, so go check them out. I'm not being sponsored by Shudder or the people who made In Search of Darkness. I think it's called Creator VC or whatever. I'm not being sponsored by them whatsoever. These are just my honest personal thoughts, and this is my honest personal recommendation to you. I mean, if you love horror, especially 80s horror, go check out In Search of Darkness. So that's it for this review. Thank you guys for watching, and see you next time.